Machine guns in Red Dead Redemption 2 are about as common as tractors on a busy motorway. For example, the first machine gun we get to use in the game is in Chapter 5, when Arthur becomes pathologically genocidal towards insects. So what would happen if you could only use a machine gun throughout the game? There will be some inconvenient situations, like Arthur trying to convince some Italians that a high-powered, crew-served machine gun is the perfect addition to finish off the interior design along with a fresh coat of paint, and making sure that the spawning of the gun doesn't break the game. Can you beat Red Dead Redemption 2 with only a machine gun? The road to Chapter 1 was a fairly normal affair that sets the tone for the rest of the game. You know, go on a heist, fuck it up, blame the universe. Chapter 1 arrived, a few incidents happened, and having a machine gun somewhat made things easier, like a calculator in a maths exam. Before introducing ourselves to some Irish gang members, I tried setting up my machine gun inside the cowshed to shock them like a badly judged surprise party for an older relative with a pacemaker. But it teleported out into the open, so when the gunfight started, I had to dart out of the cowshed like a cock running from the hen house, obliterating their anatomy whilst also ruining the insulation of the nearby house, not realising the original occupant, Sadie, was still hiding in the house somewhere, presumably until things calmed down, like parents when their teenager hosts a house party. I did search a barn, and after a man jumped on me like a Dark Souls creature lurking above the doorframe, I pulled out my machine gun and killed him. This bugged the game as it prevents us from learning about a train robbery which stops the story dead in its tracks. Found John with a huge gash on his face like he tried going down on a lawnmower. Picked him up and walked out to the open near a glacier, pulled out my machine gun to deal with the wolves, the same way a quiet kid at school deals with having no friends. By the way, I don't know how our horses know where to meet us. I suppose they have their own version of Find My Rider, which coincidentally sounds like an inappropriate dating app. Rode down the mountain, got attacked by wolves, so I deployed my machine gun, not knowing my horse has the same reaction time of someone who's got behind the wheel after 7 Jaeger bombs. Tried again, got past the wolves, and was riding down the stream until Javier stopped paying attention to where he was going, hit a rock, and sent an injured John Marston flopping into the air like a naive salmon. If that wasn't taking the royal piss, the third attempt saw my horse jumping into the cliff, lost our balance, fell flat on our face, and started wondering if the game was hiding its laughter like a man trying to hold in a fart on the first date and shits himself anyway. And the wolves latched onto Javier's horse, and there was simply nothing I can do. After giving Charles a lesson on modern day hunting that gave Bambi's mum a lesson in natural selection, surprisingly Charles didn't get mad at me for using a machine gun to hunt, or make me restart the mission in fact. He just scorned at me as I dropped off the deer carcass in front of Pearson, wishing him luck, carving out the hundreds of bullets to make it edible. Dutch told me to grab a carbine, having no idea I've got a machine gun stuffed down my trousers that needs 4 people to assemble it. Assaulted the Irish camp, removing limbs and other important parts of the body. Deployed my machine gun again, but didn't realise deploying it on ice on a hill was a terrible idea. They found the machine gun so terrifying that they ran into the woods like a scene from that Sherlock Holmes film. And they would be lucky to only get away with a damn splinter, let me tell you. During the train robbery, I deployed the gun again, and it was welcomed like a dog shit on a wedding cake. It seems pulling it out resulted in Arthur falling through the slacks in the wood, and he had to start running to keep up with the train like a scene from the Flintstones. Tried again in a different part of the train, but it teleported me out, and one of the guards came along like a cosmic skid mark. Stopped the train, killed everyone, even though my machine gun was struggling to find a solid foundation like a lawyer representing dodgy film producers. Scared the shit out of the enemies that were holed up in this armoured cart. Had to plant some dynamite on the cart, so Charles had to break up my unhealthy relationship with a deadly weapon. Moving swiftly along, I sat on a park bench like an abandoned sausage roll left in Blackpool. Found out Tilly was getting threatened by a man who has never slept on the cold side of the pillow. I de-escalate the situation by shoving a long barrel into his face, the same way your grandma shoves compliments down your throat and hopes it will give you the confidence to get a girlfriend, because she's fucking bored. Anyway, he pushed me over like a stack of Jaffa cakes, which was starting to reveal to me how unstable the tripod is. Found Karen being abused by a man who's watched too many episodes of 13 Reasons Why and dropped off the deep end. I spawned a machine gun, but it became an introvert and attached itself to the side of the building. Jumped through a window and found the abuser running out of the room and dragged me back into the bedroom. Now, I don't know what this guy's intention is. Either he has a harrowing fear of hallways, or he vastly overestimated his own abilities to enter a fistfight with what is essentially a rock held together with spite. Saved Karen, and when I started chasing the guy from Blackwater, the game froze. Well, that's fantastic. Let's carry on. Got into a bar fight, which is otherwise known as a quiet night in if you're from Glasgow. Took on the big guy, but he simply couldn't keep still like a disobedient dog. As I tried aiming at him with my machine gun, because what else are you supposed to do with a box full of ammunition? The piss and the taking thereof quickly ended as I expended all the bullets into everyone except the guy I was trying to hit. Interestingly enough, no one seemed all that bothered as I blew off the heads of their fellow townsfolk. The sheriff probably had a look out the window, thought it would be a good time to go on annual leave, and even the game itself didn't see this appalling behaviour worthy of the mission being terminated, followed up by a backhand to the face through the screen. Funny enough, all the NPCs that died horrible deaths were resurrected for the cutscene, and it felt like I just stepped into a Tim Burton film, pretending to use limbs that have clearly been eviscerated and their other body parts spewed across the main street, trying to blend in as a natural asset alongside the horse shit and murdered prostitutes. Went to save Sean from some bounty hunters, tried saving him from the riverbank, but that was about as effective as Hillary Clinton's IT consultant.
You think they can see us?
Despite the machine gun having the balance of a baby deer on a frozen lake covered in fairy liquid, we killed the enemies that were holding Sean captive by relocating their limbs to different postcodes. John, Bill and I went to an enemy camp and we had to take out some guards silently so we don't alert the rest of them. So usually you will equip stealth-based weapons like a bow or a knife, but setting up a machine gun on a slope was completely idiotic as it slides away from me like the bowl of trifle mother takes away from you because your brother's told you to recreate the Bruce scene from Matilda. Luckily, the guards didn't know about this cock-up until they attempted the very complicated maneuver known as turning around. We destroyed the camp with maximum efficiency, and I was chuckling to myself as I know one of the objectives for the gold medal achievement includes completing the mission with at least 80% accuracy. And I just know the game rolled its eyes and threw the clipboard out the window as I pulled out a machine gun, believing its time is better spent picking its nose or wiping its ass. Now I know there's a guy on the other side of this door ready to jump me like he's been practicing on Jehovah's Witnesses. But I tried to get the so-called jump on him trying to spawn the gun right in front of the door, but the game decided that it makes sense for me to glitch into the bloody building. I dealt with Mr. Downs the same way my granddad dealt with moles in the back garden, went to save Mary's little brother, and ultimately, whilst I was fannying about with the mod menu to spawn my suicide helpline, he shot himself. I saved his life on the second attempt, and it was such a stupendous occasion that the two machine guns I spawned started copulating like seals. Broke Micah out of jail and murdered the entire town for good measure. Despite me tripping over my feet and falling flat on my face like a pensioner living in a very dodgy care home in Luton, we escaped without the mission getting worse. Stopped a train with John, Charles and Sean, but upon spawning the gun in this very small carriage, the game then pushed me into the floor so much that I phased through the carriage and had to crawl out. I wonder what John's perspective was like, seeing Arthur turn into the Wicked Witch of the West, but instead of water being its weakness, it's whiskey or a transmission of blood from an individual who doesn't know how to use a tissue. Tried saving Sean, but again the gun was just ignoring that a flatbed carriage on a train does not constitute a flat surface. Robbed a bank coach with Micah, but I thought if I set up my gun placement ahead of the coach I won't get left behind or fail the mission. However, this would have been the perfect plan if I hadn't set up my gun in the middle of the road, forgetting that killing the driver does not mean the horses will automatically stop. Got rid of the other guards, whilst Micah and his horse were trying to shag a tree. Got ambushed with the carriage, and luckily the current of the river wasn't strong enough to knock over the guns, so the fight ended faster than the moment someone brings a crowbar to a pillow fight. John and Strauss were captured, but Arthur decided to fuck about with a machine gun like a dog chasing its own tail, causing traffic in a built-up area, and on top of that, shoots Strauss in the face. Took a nice stroll down the high street and turned some heads inside out before escaping. When shopping with Sadie, then these two Muppets showed up. Sadie shot at them, they chased us, so I thought this was the perfect time to set up my gun on the back of the wagon, like it was a scene from Indiana Jones. It was the perfect plan, again, until the game spawned my gun in front of the wagon. Sadie ran me over and I was shat out the back of the wagon like it had curry and beer the night before. Rather awkwardly, I had to run over over to Sadie and provide covering fire. Accidentally killed a man's horse, which is something I will lose sleep over. Went to arrest some moonshiners and decided to go right this time instead of left, which was a major decision after going left on every single playthrough beforehand. Blew up the still and helped Bill defeat the rest of the enemies. Hosea and I gave out free drinks at the saloon. The Three Stooges turned up asking about their missing booze. And despite Hosea saying who wants to get shot over a bottle of liquor, it precedes people getting shot over liquor. Well, Hosea was shooting them anyway as Arthur couldn't coax his machine gun to stop swinging from the chandeliers. Try levitating above the ground with the gun, but that sets me up to encounter so many bullets that I don't know if I die from blood loss or suffocation. Got into the wagon with Hosea where we couldn't vacate the vicinity because of the machine gun placements I spawned trying to fix the previous attempts, like plugging up leaks on a boat with your knob. I couldn't do much about this since the horses don't seem to care about what is happening. Hosea can't navigate round the gun placements because he's got the same sense of direction as James May. And I can't do much else other than shoot things praying that it somehow changes the course of the universe. Uncle interrupted and told me about a reliable robbery that will not contribute to catastrophic events further down the line. Bill and Charles got roped in as well, like two siblings that walked into their father's point of view when he's emptying the garage. Robbed the wagon and the cavalry arrives and swatted me aside like a homeless person in the middle of a riot. Initiated a previous plan to set up my gun further ahead to give me more time and slow them down, which went well. We hold up in a barn, hoping to have the same blending abilities as that can of tuna that's been in your cupboard for 2 years. Held off the enemies from outside the barn, despite my colleagues yelling in my ear thinking I was going to get myself killed. Ah, alas, my fellow criminals, you forget that my gun is bigger than theirs. Later on, I robbed some horses with John and Javier, but every time I spawned my gun, my horse chooses this as the opportune time to run away. Turns out my horse is about as passionate about a robbery as a CEO is about a charity meeting. Went for a walk. Sean died after I told him Santa Claus wasn't real, and I started destroying the town, making it look like if Sesame Street was created by the DCU. Entered the gun store to clear a cluster of enemies, and my machine gun started having sex with the wall. Saved Bill from getting shot, and we attacked the Braithwaite mansion. Tried setting up on the balcony of the mansion only for the gun to fling me off. I suppose this is where our relationship is getting tested like your mum and that sailor's bar. Breached a door, spazzed out a bit, and ended up levitating above the bloody property like David Blaine if he was a slightly more violent nutter. John and I cleared out a new campsite, and each enemy's fate could be described by a 9-letter word: surprised, petrified, brainless, oblivious, and okay, I'll stop now. Yes, I didn't really use my machine gun since it spawns having a funny 5 minutes. But you got to make sure all that time watching Countdown on repeat not feel like a waste of time. To rescue Jack, we killed everyone in the graveyard. Doesn't matter if they're mourning a loved one or so desperate for their inheritance that they can't wait for the paperwork to come through. If it lives, it's getting a bullet or two. Paid off the Italians so they can release a kidnapped child, and met with Trelawney to rob a ferry. After shaming me for wearing an unsuitable outfit, like your mother asking you and your siblings to make a bloody effort for once, robbed the safe on the boat and started spinning around like I was on the world's most dangerous carousel. It wasn't that difficult to escape, as bringing a machine gun into a poker room is so efficient that it beats applying jam to toast using a steamroller. Kieran came back to camp a bit worse for wear, which is a shoddy phrase for decapitation, but there you go. Although rather poetically, I was able to inflict the same death to the enemies without giving them the dignity of leaving their heads intact. Lenny, Dutch and I robbed the trolley station, and obviously by the speed of the police arriving, you would think it was owned by Waitrose, because guaranteed if it was owned by Aldi, no one would give a shit. Crashed a bigger trolley, and Dutch got a concussion, which some people are using as an excuse for his behavior in Chapter 6, which is absolute bollocks. I guess we'll forget about the fact that he killed an innocent woman before the game even started. I tried not engaging with the enemies and let Lenny and a mentally incapacitated Dutch take them out as we make our escape. We made it to the roadblock on the bridge, which needed me to shoot some dynamite to blow a hole through. I forgot the gun spawns in front of the wagon, and I learned how it feels to be fruit in a blender. The dynamite exploded regardless, so Lenny and Dutch rode off without me, and I had to catch up to them on foot, which was embarrassing, really summing up our competency to complete a bloody robbery in this game. Anyway, we grabbed a boat driver in the swamp for an upcoming mission, but we ran into the Dolph Lundgren of alligators, and I couldn't set up my gun without falling into the swamp the alligator coincidentally lives in. Mind you, it seemed more interested in the boat until I teleported to the boat just in time for it to launch out of the water and grab me like a dog left alone with a tray of pigs and blankets. And you know what? That scared the genuine shit out of me. Knocked on Bronte's door to really find out why the Italians get angry whenever someone makes a carbonara. I have been told that carbonara is the forbidden pasta, because if you step out of line from the original recipe, you will have the Italian secret pasta police at your doorstep, and that'll be the last time anybody hears from you. Moving on, we robbed the bank in Saint Denis. Hosea gets shot, and I started firing my machine gun, which created some kind of dizzying power trip. Lenny got shot, and we escaped on a boat. Washed up on Guama, saved Javier, and made our escape to the fortress. The warship attacks, and my machine gun decided to chuck me into the sea like a discarded crisp packet. Made it to the beach to set up our defenses, and I started to feel like a German in 1944. Blew up the warship, killed some more soldiers, saved the captain, and escaped. Saved the gang from the Pinkertons in the swamps, and Charles accompanied me to clear out the inbred cave, despite the machine gun having the balance of an elephant trying to kite surf. And Molly spills her entrails in the middle of camp because Grimshaw wanted to spell out the word loyalty. After we found that John is indeed getting bummed in prison, we returned to Sadie, who was getting chased. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough space in the balloon for my gun, and the only way it could have been effective is if I crushed the enemies from above. Crashed and killed the rest of the enemy gang members. Grabbed John and fought our way off the island. And even though I kept the prison guards within the bottleneck of their own spawn area, the game still killed me instantly, since I didn't run away quick enough. I guess the game acted like an assassin seeing their target clearly taking the piss. Got onto a boat, but I couldn't set up the gun, and so I was left behind as Sadie and John were confident I was still on board. And Dutch started acting like a HR rep welcoming you back from administrative leave. Dutch killed Cornwall, and my gun pinned me to the floor. Colm got hanged, and we opened fire on the courtyard. Let's just ignore the fact that I fell off the roof on my first attempt, because that's just a given at this rate. Skipping ahead to the final mission, since nothing really happened except for Arthur's refusal to get on a machine gun when several military personnel were bearing down on him like a teacher with coffee breath. Accidentally killing or failing to save Native Americans, killed a man that looks like Billy Connolly, and Arthur falling through the slats of the train again. Killed some more agents before saving Abigail by glitching my gun into the ceiling. The climax with Dutch and Micah was interrupted with more government agents showing up, still hoping to be taken seriously. And Arthur sets up his gun and covers John, who runs into the caves, thus leading to every man's fantasy of holding off a never-ending amount of enemies with a heavy machine gun, whilst having Like a Prayer by Madonna playing in the background. John was constantly shouting from the entrance, getting you to follow him, which sort of killed the mood. Out the top of the caves, we got on our horses and we were chased by Dutch, Micah, and these two twats. I tried killing them, but there's obviously a very important reason why they need to stay alive. And believe me, I tried everything. Said goodbye to John and set up my gun on the rocks, or at least tried to a few times, until Micah chucked me off the edge. He too had an impossible amount of armor, and the fight ended with me beating the shit out of him until I died of TB. Playing as John, we chased down Cleet, killed him, and made our way to Micah. Fought our way up the mountain and confronted Micah with 1,000 bullets that didn't seem to work, so I tried again and I started slipping about like a drunk man on roller skates, which led to Sadie and Dutch getting a reservation in a cemetery. And that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the amazing adventures of a machine gun that has a weird way of socializing. If you did enjoy the video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I would very much appreciate it, especially since you made it to the end. If you would like to see another video of mine, it will be on screen. Trust me, you will have an absolute blast with it. Anyway, thank you for putting up with me and for lending me your patience, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next video.